I was stunned when Balanchine came up to me and said, I'd like you to learn Apollo. And in particular, all of the Apollos, as far as I knew, in its history, were very, very tall guys. And I am not a tall man. So it really stunned me that he would ask me to learn it. And he said, I think you have a very good potential in it. So again, I was just stunned. So he said, go learn it and show it to me. So I went to a guy who knew it. I asked him to show it to me. He did. I showed it to Balanchine. And Balanchine looked at me and he said, that's not Apollo. And I said, Mr. Bean, it's the steps, it's the counts, He said, but it's not Apollo. And he said, I will show it to you. And there he is standing in a double-breasted suit. And he always had something around his neck, a scarf, looking very elegant. And I said, okay, show it to me. So he shows it to me, and suddenly I see there's an enormous dimension to his characterization. And I thought, wow, at least now I have from the inventor, oh my golly, I have what it is that he wants the characterization to be like. So I showed it to him, and again he said, that's not Apollo. And I thought, oh my God, now what do I do? And he said, I will show it to you. And there he is in this double-breasted suit, wearing loafers, and he shows me Apollo. And I could see this deity emerging. So at least now I had something to move towards. I said, wow, okay. So I do it, I perform it, and he never says another word to me. But that meant it was what he wanted. So I said, okay, great. And I danced it for many years. Lincoln Kirstein, who was the general director of the ballet company and who brought Balanchine over from Europe, I thought, well, he must think I've done a good job, and I'm pleased with it. And I worked on it, and as performances were proceeding, as in most ballets, you get comfortable in the role, and you proceed to make your own comment. So there I was. I was comfortable with it. He was comfortable with it. I said, what else do you need? Apollo was a huge breakthrough. What his inventions were were unheard of. And they were unique unto themselves. So it was an enormous challenge to make this your own, even though Balanchine had showed me. So I thought, this is something now that I have to treasure, and I have to make my own. I have to be very, very comfortable with this. And Lincoln Kirstein, the general director of the company, once said to me, the guy who has done this role prior to you, Balanchine said to me, he looks like he's dancing like Mrs. Frankenstein. So I thought, okay, I'm not going to be Mrs. Frankenstein. But, you know, I sort of understood what he was saying. And that was that this guy had embellished it and was adding his own Mrs. Frankenstein to this role. And I thought, well, you know, the simplicity that he showed me was correct. And I didn't need to add anything. And that was the thing about Balanchine. Once he showed you, that was it. You didn't have to take anything and expound upon it. It was there. And if you understood it well enough, you could dance it. And every role he ever gave me was exactly the same. I always thought the biggest challenge was at the very, very end. And Balanchine, being a minimalist, the only thing on the stage was a stairway, and at the top and at the bottom was a cage. And that was it. And the opening gesture of the main variation that Apollo does is just that he opens his arms and looks up. And Balanchine said, he's looking up as Zeus, his father. I said, wow, isn't that extraordinary and wonderful and simple? It just says everything. Don't embellish that. And the next thing is, you take your arms above your head and you get up on your half toes. And he said, you know, it's like an eagle on a crag looking down. I went, oh, now I have an eagle. Wow. And then you swing your arms down and go way down. So I could see where his imagination had taken him. An eagle on a crag. And Apollo had this amazing quality to understand all of that. And then Apollo just swings his arms around and looks up, ready to continue. But he had already made this 2 or 3 gestures that had already encompassed whom he thought this character should be. And prior to all of that, before he does his major variation, Terpsichore dances for him. And she had given him insight. We had seen Apollo be born. So he jumps out of this cage, and that's his birth. Again, the simplicity of it, still major in its statements. And then he begins to interpret, and he interprets. And then he starts doing bird-like gesture, going across the stage, again taking from the eagle idea. It's an amazing work. The music is by Stravinsky, again, minimalistic, but very clear, very, brilliant. Stravinsky being one of the greatest choreographers. And Stravinsky and Balanchine were, to put it in Balanchine's phraseology, we were both St. Petersburgers. And that's like saying, I'm a New Yorker. Yeah. Later on, Balanchine said to me, you know, it's the first time when I was first choreographing Apollo that I knew I had more material than I needed. Oh, and having worked with many choreographers over the years, they're always looking, they're always seeking, they're always trying. He never had that problem. And we had a major doctor, Bill Hamilton, and Bill finally said, I have to ask Balanchine where it all comes from. So he does, and Balanchine says, well, you know, I just see it. Can you imagine to have that kind of intelligence just to see it? And that's what he did. And he would stop in a rehearsal and just look at the score. And he'd look at the score 5-10 minutes, and pandemonium would be going on around him. And then he'd say, okay, clap his hands, ask everybody to get back to work. The score told him. Stravinsky told him. And it was amazing to watch these two guys work together. It was symbiotic. I mean, they just understood each other so brilliantly.